Hey guys, Abraham Ovadia here, Legally Exhausted podcast. We've got one of the titans of bad faith here. He's gonna give me shit for that. But Fred Cunningham at Dominic Cunningham and Yafa. We had his partner on earlier yesterday, and we're here to give him a tough time today. Ask him some tough questions, see what he's got. We got a limited time, but I'm really excited to have you on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Abe. Which camera do I look into?
So it's just going to be us talking here, and then that one's on me and that one's on you, but we're just going to have a conversation.
Like this is like a CIA sting operation or something.
No, it's all good. It's all good. So I wanted to ask you basically, basic infos for the viewers, like where did you grow up? Why did you become a lawyer? Where did you go to school? Stuff like that.
Dude, that might take the whole 40 minutes right there. But no, it's a really interesting, I think, story. I mean, a lot of other people are interested in it too. So I'm an Air Force brat.
Okay.
My dad's just a guy from North Carolina who wanted to escape the mill village that his family had lived in for generations. And so he joined the Air Force when he was 18.
Wow.
Ended up going to Taiwan, met my mother there. So my mom's from Shanghai, but she had fled to Taiwan when the communists came in 48.
Okay.
Because her father was very wealthy. And what happens? Are you from Cuba? Is that
my mom's Cuban, yeah.
So you know exactly what I'm talking about. The communists come in and they'll take all your money and kill family members if they don't get what they want. So her father sent her to Taiwan. My father met my mother in Taiwan. I was actually born in Canada.
Oh.
So people
can't be president, or can you?
Well, it's either me or Ted Cruz. Will probably be in a head-to-head matchup. I'm thinking 2028, probably Cunningham, Cruz.
Let's go. Let's do it.
I'll beat him like a drum. So I was born in Canada. My father was in the Air Force until I was 10 years old. So we lived in Spain when I was a kid. We lived on an Air Force base in Madrid. I was born on an Air Force base in Newfoundland, Canada.
Wow.
Which all I remember is it was extremely cold. We left very shortly thereafter, but because of that, I have Canadian citizenship as well. And so, so raised in North Carolina, came down here after getting out of UNC Law School in 1988. I came down to Florida, didn't know a soul. Wow. I just knew I wanted to be out of North Carolina because the politics there were horrible. There was so much racism going on there. I thought moving to Florida was going to be better. And now North Carolina is more progressive than Florida is. So it's kind of crazy to me. It's something that's really not making me very happy. So I went to, like I said, law school at UNC. I graduated from college with a business degree. And I had a really good job opportunity with Barclays Bank. I would have been doing management training between London and Charlotte. But I remember saying to my father, Dad, I just don't think I want to be a banker. And I remember the starting salary in 1985. What's your guess?
$40,000?
$18,500.
Wow.
But look, that was all the money in the world to me at the time. I was like, man, I can't believe I'm passing this up to go to law school. But
okay, that was instead of going to law school. Gotcha.
Yeah. So my father said, if you want to go to law school, what had happened was my parents started a restaurant after my dad had retired from the Air Force, and that went very well. And I was the youngest of 4 kids, so my dad said, if you want to go to college, if you want to go to law school, Mom and Dad can help you. And I was lucky. I was in state in North Carolina. North Carolina still heavily subsidizes in-state students.
Okay.
What year did you graduate from law school?
09.
Okay, so when I was in law school, I just found a tuition statement recently because my mom gave me all my stuff that was in her attic.
Oh, okay.
My tuition at UNC from 1985 to 1988 was about $800 a semester.
Okay.
So I had read an article when I was in law school in USA Today. I still remember it. I probably have it somewhere. That said that Palm Beach County was the fastest growing county east of the Mississippi River. And so I had come down here for spring break in 1983 to North Palm Beach, stayed with a friend. It was like 80 degrees, March of 83. Chapel Hill was about 20.
Okay.
And I said, this doesn't look like a bad place to live. And then when I saw that Palm Beach County was growing so quickly, I clerked down here after my second year in law school. I clerked for a great firm, still around, still powerhouse firm, Jones and Foster, in Palm Beach.
Yeah.
And I worked primarily with the insurance defense guys, who I considered to be the trial lawyers there. They also have commercial litigation, and I don't mean to disparage commercial litigators, but I wanted to be in the courtroom a lot, not every once in a while. So what I didn't know is they were phasing out their insurance defense department because they weren't that profitable. This is 1987. That's right when the real estate boom, the first one, was starting in Palm Beach County.
Okay.
So I'll never forget, I went to, they took me to the Palm Beach Yacht Club and said, we want to extend you an offer to come back after you graduate from UNC. But I said, well, I want to do insurance defense. I want to do trial work. They said, well, those guys don't know it yet, but they're not going to be in the firm when you get back. We want you to come back and do commercial litigation. And I love the people at that firm. I still have a lot of friends there. I'm about to try a case against them right now, which is going to be fun. But turning down Sid Stubbs, who is still really he's the main guy at Jones Foster. Sid's probably 80 now, but it was really hard to turn him down. But because I didn't want to do commercial litigation, I actually had accepted a job in Los Angeles. So I was going to be working downtown Los Angeles doing insurance defense. And then I think I was on spring break in my last year of law school. And a couple of lawyers at the firm that had split off from Jones and Foster called me and said, hey, we broke off from Jones Foster. We want you to come with us. And I said, oh, guys, I've accepted a job in Los Angeles. This was right around the time LA Law was on TV.
Okay.
One of my good friends from law school was going to LA. But the point of the story, I'm telling you this because I learned a lesson in law school economics. Because what happened is, or law firm economics, what happened is, so I knew in my heart that I wanted to go to Florida. I was so intrigued by the opportunity to go to Los Angeles, but I knew it was a huge legal community out there. And so what I decided was I'd rather try to be a big fish in a small but growing pond than go out to LA and be a guppy in the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
So I agonized because, I'm a military brat. My word is my bond. That was drilled into me as a child. And I just agonized over calling the law firm. It was from Lewis Brisbois. At the time, it was called Lewis D'Amato, Brisbois, and Bisgard. They've had some notoriety recently because of some crazy emails that some partners had sent. But in any event, so I agonized, and finally I mustered up the courage to call Lewis Brisbois and tell them I was going to Florida. And I'll never forget, the managing partner was a woman named Ramona C., who is now a judge in California. And I called and she said, oh, hi, Fred. It's great to hear from you. We can't wait to see you in June. I said, well, Ramona, that's the problem. I just want to tell you I've agonized over this, and I really appreciate the opportunity you guys have given me, but I'm an East Coast guy. My whole family's here. I think I'm going to remain in Florida or go to Florida. And she said, okay, thank you. Pretty much hung up the phone on me. So what I learned in that moment, I later learned that they had about 35 first-year attorneys coming in. God knows how many of them are still with the firm. From 1988, 35 years, probably none.
Yeah.
So it was a real lesson because, Abe, I had no frame of reference. I had no lawyers in my family. I was the first of 4 children to graduate from college.
Wow.
My brothers and my sister are all extremely intelligent. They're all doing very well. They just didn't get pushed to go to college. Which is probably an indictment of the public education system in North Carolina at the time. So, that's what happened is I came down here and I was doing insurance defense. And like I said, I didn't know anybody here. So what I did is I just set out. I said, okay, I'm going to have to work harder than everybody else because I don't know anybody. What I've learned now is so much of life in the legal profession and beyond is who you know, not what you know, because who you know can get your foot in the door, right? But I didn't know anybody. So I would go to every bar function. Patience Burns was the director of the Palm Beach County Bar forever until a couple of years ago, and she would call me the ubiquitous Fred Cunningham because I would be at every event.
Yeah.
So that also informed my decision as to when I would get married. I just decided I don't want to be distracted. I went to 4 years of college, 3 years of law school. I really want to be good at what I do. And so I'm really going to put my nose to the grindstone, and that's what I did. So I did 3 years on the defense side. And then in January of 92, I started working with Richard Slauson, and we worked together until I think he officially retired at the end of 2014. So we worked together for 22 years. And then at that time, we had another firm for a year that was called Cunningham, Whalen, and Gaspari. And we did that for a year. And then Sean Dominic, whom I had known for about 25 years at the time, called me and said, look, if we're ever going to do something together, this seems to be the right time to do it. So in, I guess, January 1 of 2016, we started Dominic, Cunningham, and Whalen until the end of 2022. And now the firm is Dominic, Cunningham, and Yaffa. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of a very short and boring overview of what's happened.
It's interesting, though. So I got to be honest with you. Nobody wanted me to work for them. I graduated in 2009. It took me a month to muster up the courage to call my boss and say, hey, I got past the bar, and it took me a month. And then when he gave me the pay raise of $1, because this is 2009, it was bad.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him. I got respect for him. And I go, man, it took me another month to tell him I got to leave because I couldn't afford it. I was driving.
Was it?
I'm embarrassed to say.
You can say.
It was Russell Zega. He does pip suits a lot. Yeah, he's a nice guy.
Look, we're not here to disparage anybody. I'm just wondering about the biography, but I didn't know anybody. I said, I'm going to come down there and I'm going to either succeed or fail based on the effort I put in. Mm-hmm. And I will tell you, Abe, when you move to Palm Beach County and you're from somewhere else, when you first come down here in the winter, first winter you're down here, you think, wait a minute, I can go boating in January. I can go jet skiing in January. Yeah. I can play golf. I can play tennis. So there were a lot of distractions. And so I made friends pretty quickly. And there are people that wanted me to go out and play golf or go boating and stuff during the week. Mm-hmm. And I would say, guys, come on. I'm a first-year attorney at a firm. I mean, there'll be time for that. I need to put the time in. And some of those people that were having a lot more fun than I was originally, I don't know if they ever recaptured or ever had that work ethic. Mm-hmm. And one thing that's always intrigued me, and that maybe this is part of what you're trying to figure out with your podcast, I'm always intrigued by how people separate themselves from their peers. Like, what is it? What are the defining characteristics of, okay, this guy became really super successful, and this person who has a similar education, similar background, maybe a different work ethic, didn't become that successful. What is it that drives that type of performance? So that's something that, even though I've been practicing for 35 years, one of the things I always do at the end of the year is I'll usually take like a day where I just go to the office over the holiday break and just sit there and take a day of introspection. Okay, where am I in my career? And let's take stock of what I think I'm doing well. Let's take stock of what I can improve. Mm-hmm. And I don't really know where that came from because, my father was in the military, very intelligent man. After he retired from the military, he had a succession of jobs. And I know that my parents, when they started their restaurant, I learned that the restaurant business is a very brutal business. I mean, it's, people see that you're open from 11 a.m. to 9 p.m. So you're open 10 hours a day, but what they don't see is you're there 2 hours before you open and you're there 2 hours after you close. And it's 6 days or 7 days a week. So what I know is that experience being in the restaurant business with my family, this started when I was 14 years old. So I was working in the restaurant business from the time I was 14. I learned that you have to work hard. So, but one thing I'll never understand is I see this younger generation of lawyers, and I don't want to indict a whole generation of lawyers, but I'm kind of shocked at some of the things we're seeing with candidates that we're interviewing. We had a young candidate recently who told us what days he wanted to work at the office and what days he wanted to work remotely.
Yeah.
And I said, man, maybe times have changed, but if a great firm gave me an opportunity, I don't think I'd be dictating to them what days I want to work at the office.
Yeah.
Like, man, give me a job and I'm going to come in and do whatever I have to do, right?
At least they had the courage. Most guys, they get hired and then they say, hey, so I could work from home, right? That's what they do to me.
Yeah. Well, and look, I don't have a problem with the concept of working from home in general, but I think we've all learned that, I worked from home for the first 2.5 months of the pandemic. At first, I loved it. I was home with my family.
Yeah.
My son was learning remotely. Now we're probably learning that our kids weren't learning as much as they should have been because it's difficult. But there are too many distractions at home. And what I learned is I needed the social aspect of being around other people. And so when we went back to work in June of 20, and, we had all the COVID protocols in place. None of us ever got COVID during that time because we were careful. But I had to be around other people. So my point is, again, I don't want to sound like the old guy. I turned 60 in May, so I guess I am the old guy, but I just don't understand how you can go to 4 years of college, 3 years of law school with all the financial obligations that entails and come out and you don't want to work hard. You don't want to distinguish yourself. So
this is the opposite of when I graduated in 09. In 09, if you told me for $50,000 a year, work 12 hours a day and crush it, I would have done it in a heartbeat. Sure. Nobody wanted to hire me. That's why I had to go on my own. Now it seems like everybody's more concerned about quality of life. And I'm paying first year attorneys way more money than I used to spend before the pandemic. And there's like a shortage of it. I'm not sure. I don't know what it is, but it's just a different market, supply and demand right now. And I think culturally, they think it's okay to work from home, which it is. But, Jamie Dimon from Chase, whether you love him or hate him, he said, listen, young people in the bank don't get the mentorship of the senior bankers because they're not here. They're not at the coffee machine. They're not talking at the water cooler about whoever. And so
I absolutely agree with that.
Yeah.
There's socialization that occurs in an office setting that sometimes is extraneous or maybe in addition to what you're doing. But you get to know people, you get to know a lot about people. The analogy I give is I always said, to me, the value of a college education was learning from my classmates, learning from the people that lived in the dorm with me. I learned more from people with diverse backgrounds than I felt like I learned from the books. So I think, especially with trial lawyers, most of us are extroverts. I don't know how you can be an introverted trial lawyer, So I think we need to be around people. I get energy from other people. I feed off of that energy. I learn a lot from other people. I've always been fascinated with other people. And one of the things I love about, we haven't talked about what I do, but in doing the insurance bad faith work, obviously most of that comes from other attorneys. And so I've been very fortunate that I get to work with a lot of the people that are considered the best tort lawyers, the best PI lawyers in Florida. And so that's fascinating for me because I do PI as well. And I really believe that our firm does PI extremely well, in all modesty.
I think everyone would agree with you, but yes.
Well, thank you, Abe. So I learned so much from being around other people, and I get to work with a Stu Grossman on a case, or I get to work with a Chris Searcy, and I don't want to leave anybody out, but I get to work with Mike Haggard on cases. And you learn the way they do things. And what you learn is everybody has their own unique ways of doing certain things, but there are certain things that everybody does the same. The typical hallmarks are intense preparation, deep passion for your client and the client's cause, and just all-out preparation. And you learn the people that really, really care about their clients and the people that don't really, really care about their clients. So that's part of what I love about doing bad faith work is just getting to work with a lot of these great lawyers and, seeing how they do things, seeing how they run their firms. I called Neil Roth recently from Grossman Roth, who Neil's another guy I consider a mentor and somebody I really look up to. And I said to him, Neil, we do a lot of med mal. You guys are, one of the undisputed masters in the med mal world in Florida. The problem everybody has with med mal is how do you efficiently do the intake and screening process? Nobody can really figure that out. There's no way to do it without putting in the work. So Neil shared some insights with me, which I shared with my partners. But, that is one thing that I love about the Florida Justice Association. And I was talking to a younger attorney from Miami this morning who's very sharp. We were talking about cases. And I said, why aren't you at the FJA seminar, the Masters of Justice? He said, I just don't have time. I said, excuse my language. I said, that's bullshit. I said, we all have the exact same amount of time, right?
Yeah.
And you make time for things that are important to you. And for guys like you and me, family is very important. So you make time for that. You have to make time for your career. But the thing about the FJA is you get to know all these people. The people in the FJA are my best friends in the world. A lot of us have been fighting the tort reform battles together in Tallahassee since 1998.
Wow.
So you have that foxhole mentality. You have your friends. You've seen how they react under pressure. You see the people that are the workhorses. You see the people that are the show horses that really aren't going to help that much, right? So you learn so much from other people. And that's, something that's just always fascinated me is how do some people consistently separate themselves from the pack? In fact, I've told Natasha, Natasha, who's our
She's incredible.
Yeah.
I heard you stole her from the FJA, actually, but.
No, Ted Leopold, before he went to Cohen-Milstein, before he joined Cohen-Milstein, Ted Leopold stole her from the FJA, which a lot of us who were heavily involved in the FJA weren't that happy about it, but we understood. It was kind of like, Ted, if you listen to this, sorry, man, you're my friend, but it was kind of like a line was crossed. That was the first time it was crossed. So a lot of people were upset. But what happened is, I've known Natasha since I think she was a senior in college. I met her probably in 1999 when she was working part-time for the FJA. Back then it was the Academy of Florida Trial Lawyers. So I knew her. I knew how sharp she was. I was always incredibly impressed with her. She was always precocious. And I wanted to snap her up quickly because any firm in South Florida.
Yeah, she's incredible.
Not just in South Florida. Any firm in Florida would want Natasha.
Yeah.
So that was a godsend. That just fell in our lap, and it was completely serendipitous. And, she's been phenomenal for the firm.
Yeah. Yeah, she's incredible. And so, I was just joking. I heard through a little birdie that she used to work at the FJA and whatever. I didn't know there was a row over it or anything like that. But yeah, no, she's incredible because the first time I met her, I go, who is this person? She's awesome. She's like a rock star. So you guys are very lucky to have her. So let me ask you, because I know we're limited on time. What would you're an amazing trial attorney.
Thank you.
You do bad faith cases, big cases. You set the tone for. You might not agree with me, but you do. You set the tone for the insurance industry. When you get a big win, I think the insurance company says, hey, let's fix this thing that we're doing because it sucks. We don't want more of these happening to us.
Am I allowed to curse on this podcast?
You sure can.
I'm going to tell you what. So a friend of mine does a lot of work for AIG, a really big insurance company. And we had our Harvey versus Geico case. I know Greg Yaffa talked about it probably at length yesterday. So we tried that case. It'll be 8 years next month, which I can't believe how fast time goes. But so a good friend of mine who's a prominent defense attorney in West Palm Beach, my former roommate from almost 35 years ago, called me and said, he was laughing. He said, I was just in Atlanta meeting with the people from AIG. He said, do you know what your name is at AIG in Atlanta? I said, no. He said, your name is fucking Cunningham. He said they were talking about the Harvey case. Oh, is that fucking Cunningham's case? So that he started calling me fucking Cunningham after that.
That's funny.
Sorry for the cursing for the sponsors. But, no, I strongly believe that gigantic institutions like banks and insurance companies should try to treat people fairly. Mm-hmm. And maybe I'm ridiculously idealistic, which I'm sure I am, but it reminds me of when, people say to me all the time, like I go to a cocktail party or something and people find out I'm a lawyer and they say, why is it that all of you trial lawyers are such flaming liberals? And I said, I'll tell you exactly why, because we're representing the little guy against the big banks, against General Motors, against the gigantic hospital, against Geico, against State Farm. So you have to believe in the cause of the little guy against the massive institutions. Mm-hmm. So I've said in the past that I feel like sometimes my job is like a legal version of Robin Hood. I'm not robbing from the rich. I'm legally taking from the rich what should have been given to the people that aren't that rich. Mm-hmm. And I love it.
Yeah.
People ask me after 35 years, do I still enjoy practicing law? And I say, look, I don't do cartwheels on my way to work every day, but I said, I get to make a really good living beyond my wildest dreams. I get to help people. I get to help my friends who refer me the cases. And I get to nail insurance companies and try to hold them accountable. Mm-hmm. What could be better than that?
Yeah.
I don't know what they call it in horse racing. There's a trifecta. What is it when you have 4? Quinella's 5. What's 4?
You got me, man. I don't follow horse racing.
We're not gamblers, I know. But anyway, my point is, if you love what you do, which I do, the old saying is, if you find something you love doing, then you'll never work a day in your life. Now, I wouldn't put it that way. There are times when you're in trial and it's 2 a.m. and you're trying to figure something out. You're trying to figure out how to win your case. There are times like that when there are things I might rather be doing, but Greg probably didn't talk about this case, but the most scared I've been in trial, not scared, it was anxious, nervous, but in January of 2018, we tried a case up in Jacksonville called Whitney versus Mercury. This was Mercury Insurance Company of Florida. So it was a bad faith case we're trying in state court instead of in federal court because they couldn't remove the case to federal court.
Okay.
Our client, wonderful, wonderful guy who we became very close to, and he's paraplegic from this car crash.
Wow.
And so obviously Mercury thought they were going to beat us. It was a complex case. The challenge in that case was explaining it to a jury, breaking it down so that people would understand. There was a lot of legal concepts going on. There was Medicaid. There was just all kinds of stuff going on. But I'll never forget, as we're getting ready for trial, and thank God Mercury did us a huge favor because they offered us almost nothing. I said to the defense attorney, I said, thank you. You've made this easy. You haven't even given us something to think about. So we have to go to trial. And the best cases settle. One thing I've always been impressed about with my colleagues around the country is the percentage of cases that plaintiff's attorneys win at trial. Because if we're going to trial, by definition, the insurance company thinks they're going to beat you, right? Mm-hmm. Otherwise, they just settle with you. So we think they're being unreasonable. They think we're being unreasonable. The jury's going to sort it out. So in that case, I just remember thinking about it before trial and being there with our client, hearing what he had to go through to put on a suit or to put on clothing that day, the number of hours that took, the bowel program, the bladder program, and this is every damn day. Mm-hmm. And so I remember telling Greg, it's the first time in my career where I started doing visualization exercises. And I visualized because I wanted so desperately to win for this guy. Because I knew if we lost, he was not going to get the medical care he needed over time. He's probably going to die very prematurely. That's a heavy burden, when you realize that if you don't win, your client's going to die much more quickly than they should.
Wow.
So I just remember visualizing, and I remember visualizing, I'm kind of thinking back how I would do it. I would sit there and meditate, and I would just visualize the bailiff handing the verdict form to the clerk, and then the clerk handing the verdict to the judge, and then the judge announcing, bad faith. It's one question on the verdict form. Did the insurance company act in bad faith? Yes or no? And I just remember visualizing that they said yes. And I remember visualizing hugging my client. And it was really crazy because when it happened, it was just like what I had seen, And I know Schwarzenegger and Muhammad Ali always talk about visualization. They always say what your mind can conceive, your body can achieve.
Okay.
But my point is just that pressure, that it's exhilarating when you win.
Mm-hmm.
I can't even imagine what I would have done if we had lost, because I wouldn't have done anything crazy. Just in terms of, I don't know how long it would have taken me to be able to go out in public, to be able to look myself in the mirror and be satisfied with myself. So that was a case where I just said, we have to win this case. And I remember a couple things happened during trial. Like Greg went out to meet with our clients who lived way out in the sticks in Jacksonville, and it was a logistical nightmare. I said, Greg, look, don't tell me the problems. Just go do it. Okay, we have to win this case. There is no other option. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't even about the money. I didn't even care about the money at that point. It was like, we have to win this case. This young man is going to die prematurely if we don't win this case. So
you're stressing me out right now.
But man, there's nothing like that when you win.
Mm-hmm.
When you care that much about a client, when you care that much about their cause. And look, it gets easier as you get more experience, Abe, because you don't have the same financial pressure you might have had earlier in your career. Mm-hmm. If you've been lucky enough to have any success. What I tell my clients all the time now is we get a settlement offer. And I say, look, remember, bad faith is yes or no, or this could be in a PI case too, in a catastrophic PI case. We're either going to beat that offer or we're not. If we go to trial on a bad faith case, it's yes or no.
Mm-hmm.
So the jury could say no. And so what I tell my clients is, if that happens, if we lose, I'm going to feel horribly, but my life's not going to change.
Mm-hmm.
My kid will stay in private school. We'll still take vacations, but your life will never be what it could have been if you had settled and taken this money.
Mm-hmm.
So, that's the pressure that I feel. I just want to do the best I can for my clients. And it's great I'm not ready to retire. I'd go crazy being retired, but it just makes it so much easier when you don't have that financial pressure all the time.
So what was the end result for that
we
guy?
Won. We won.
Just on the bad faith. There was no dollar figure yet.
No, there was a $7 million judgment before the bad faith case. So,
okay. So now you just had to prove there was bad faith.
We won the trial.
Okay.
And I will tell you what happened is we took a little bit less because I was very concerned, and this is something that you have to think about all the time now when you go to trial. I was concerned. I felt like we were going to win at trial, but it was such a novel issue that I thought we might not be able to keep it on appeal. Okay. And so the insurance company knew that. They had a very good lawyer, very sharp lawyer. And, so we took a little bit less than what we got from the verdict because I told the client, I said, okay, we've only jumped over a hurdle here.
So Fred, tell us a little bit about maybe some tips for a young lawyer that says, I want to do trials. I want to be Fred in the future. Fucking Cunningham. I want to be that guy. What would you suggest they do? Is there a book? Is there an idea that you can leave somebody to walk away with to create that next level generation?
There are so many things you can do. One of the things I did as a young attorney when I was doing defense work, we have some of the all-time legendary trial lawyers in the country that were in Palm Beach County.
Mm-hmm.
You had Bob Montgomery, who's now passed. You had Shelley Schlesinger, who's now passed. You still have Chris Searcy here. You had Ted Babbitt, Greg Barnhart, Jack Scarola. I don't want to leave anybody out, but you look at that firm at one time, it was Montgomery, Searcy, Denny, Lytle, Ryder, Joe Ryder, Lake Lytle. What I would do as a young defense attorney is, a lot of times because I'm in a defense firm, I would hear about a trial that was going. Mm-hmm. And so what I would do, I know this sounds probably old-fashioned now, maybe a little bit corny, but I'd say, okay, so I'm going to take Monday. I'm going to go watch jury selection of this trial. So I'd say, okay, I'm going to have to come in on Saturday or Sunday because I can't just take off Monday, if I haven't made up that work somewhere else. Mm-hmm. So I would go down to the courthouse and I would just watch trials. And I'll never forget John Shipley, who was a phenomenal lawyer at Searcy Denny. John never got the notoriety, never got the attention that Chris Searcy, Greg Barnhart, Jack Scrolla got. John was an amazing lawyer. And I'll never forget, he gave his opening statement and he just stood next to the podium, leaned against it, put his elbow on it, and just talked to the jury for about 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. No notes. Nothing. Just talk to the jury. And I went, man, that is so powerful. That is so effective. So if you're a young attorney, find out who's trying cases. The best lawyers, the best trial lawyers became that way for a reason, right? Mm-hmm. A lot of times they've tried a ton of cases. And one thing I would say to young attorneys is don't get discouraged. I'll never forget my first trial. I remember before my opening statement, I went in the bathroom and I didn't know whether to throw up or take a leak, because I wasn't nervous. I always tell people it's like when you play sports. Let's say you're playing shortstop in Little League or Pony League or whatever, and you're out there on the field and you have the jitters until somebody hits you the ball and you throw them out at first base, right?
Yeah.
Then everything's cool.
Right.
So I still get that anxiety before a trial, but there's a big difference between anxiety and nerves, okay? I'm anxious because I know that I'm prepared. I just don't know exactly what the outcome's going to be. Mm-hmm. But if I'm prepared, I'm never going to be nervous. There is no fear of the unknown because I'm never going to be out prepared before a trial. Mm-hmm. And that's one thing I would say to the young attorneys is if you're a plaintiff's attorney, you better not ever be out prepared, because one of the benefits of being a plaintiff's attorney as compared to the defense is you're probably handling fewer files. You're not having to write a letter every time you take a deposition. You're not having to report on everything you're doing. You have more time to strategize. Mm-hmm. And there is no excuse for not being the most prepared attorney in that courtroom. Mm-hmm. Another thing I would recommend, I don't even hear this guy's name anymore, but there's a guy named Herb Stern, not Howard Stern's father. That's another Herb Stern. Herb Stern was a federal judge in New Jersey when he was about 35 years old. Have you ever heard of him?
No.
He wrote a book series called Trying Cases to Win.
Okay.
And to this day, I think I saw him live in about 1990. To this day, I still think he's the most insightful expert on trial ad I've ever read or seen or heard.
Okay.
So he has a book series. It's called Trying Cases to Win. He has a whole book about cross-examination. And you go on YouTube. That's another thing. Man, there is so much information on YouTube that can help young lawyers. Mm-hmm. So I would also tell young lawyers, don't try to emulate someone else's style. Mm-hmm. You got to be yourself. Everybody has unique characteristics. A trial is just about persuasion. So figure out how you persuade people in your everyday life. Usually it's about being a nice person. It's about being organized. It's about telling a coherent story. That's how you win cases. Usually the person with the best story is going to win, right? Mm-hmm. So there are so many resources out there. One thing I've said to our younger lawyers sometimes is part of mentorship is we have a vast repository of depositions, trial transcripts, all of that.
Yeah.
And again, I know it sounds corny, but come to me and say, give me a great example of an expert depo that I can read. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you. Fred, how do I try this case? Tell me what I do. Tell me how this goes. Look, here's my Dropbox. Here's a trial transcript from the Harvey trial. You don't have to read the whole thing, but if you're not going to go in person, then at least understand, read, educate yourself. I don't understand people that just want a paycheck. If that's what you want, that's fine. I'm not going to pass judgment on you, but you're never going to be wildly successful if that's how you're going to approach your career.
Yeah.
So there are so many things you can do. I really don't like excuses. I really don't like people say, I didn't have time. Like I said, we all have the same time. Okay. Yeah. You chose not to make the time for this because you thought something else was important. Maybe you were streaming season 10 of Dexter or whatever.
Yeah, that's a great.
When you could have been preparing for trial. And I'm not saying don't do those things. I think one of the biggest failings of our educational system is we don't teach time management.
Yeah.
Time management is probably the most important factor in whether you're going to be successful or not. So you've got to learn how to do that. Look, I spend time on Instagram. I spend time on YouTube. Usually it's like, in a break during the day. Yeah. So I'm not saying, hey, don't have any diversions.
Got to live your life. But at the same time, when you got a trial on schedule, you got to be prepared.
Yeah. I mean, there's just no excuse. And thank God I can't think of any trial I've been in where I felt like the other side was better prepared than I was. But the old adage is true. You learn more from your losses than you do from your wins. And probably that's because you don't tend to psychoanalyze your wins. You're like, okay, I won. Let's hope I keep it on appeal. But when you lose, then you have to figure out why. And what I found in my career is I probably lost that case when I decided to take it. I'll tell you, the only bad faith case we lost, and I'm not going to disparage my former partner, but we tried a case against Geico, and I got called in 2 weeks before trial. And I said to my partner who wanted me to try the case with him, I said, how are you going to win that case? We can't win that case. We had a client who had a $800,000 judgment against her. She had caused a car crash, okay? Injured somebody to get an $800,000 judgment. What's the problem? Well, the problem was it was 8 a.m. when the accident happened. She had just dropped her 2 kids off at school, and she was drunk. So I said, how are you going to win that? The jury is not going to care that this woman has an $800,000 judgment against her when she only has $25,000 in coverage. They're going to say she deserved it. So we went and mock tried the case, and I played defense attorney, and that's what I did. And, we couldn't win the mock trial because I said that's what's going to happen at trial. So you have to be smart. As a young attorney, it's difficult to have the discipline because if you're in your own firm, you got to pay the bills, And look, man, I always admire people like you that went out and just did it because
it was not my intent.
No, it's got to be terrifying though, right?
Yeah, I didn't know. And the worst is I was a new lawyer. I didn't know shit about anything.
But see, one thing I hope we can do with your podcast, with these videos is tell people if you don't know what you're doing, don't be afraid to ask for help. What I've always done, Abe, is I was very lucky when I started my career. I didn't know anything either. As much as I love University of North Carolina Law School, it was very theoretical. I tell people I didn't understand summary judgment until I did my first one as a defense attorney. We talked about it for 2 months in class, but I think our professor was just trying to torture us. And I remember thinking at the time, wow, man, this guy's brilliant. But then I thought, been teaching this for 30 years. Of course he knows it like the back of his hand, right? But to the young lawyers, do not be afraid to reach out to people for help. People like me are always going to take your call. I've taught at Alcone, the Alcone seminar the FJA does, and I've had people that I had taught 10 years ago that reach out to me. I always tell them, look, anytime you need help, let me know. Because I had so many people that helped me along the way that I've always felt that obligation to give back, and I think most of my colleagues do the same thing.
Yeah. Guess how many times it took me to file my first lawsuit? This was before it was e-filing. Guess how many times it took me?
What, to e-file something?
No, to file a lawsuit in paper, in person, before they had the e-filing. My first times? 4 times. Yeah. 4 times. The last thing was they go, you need 3 copies. And I'm like, So I had to go back, and then they go, it's $10 for a summons. I needed to go back with another check. Now it's all e-filing, right? It's beautiful to file a lawsuit.
I have no idea how to do that stuff.
I don't do it either, but we got people who do it now, luckily. But yeah, well, that was, you know, I mean, I'm not a genius. I'm not an intellect or anything like that, but I grind. If I got to do something, I make it my mission to do it. And it took me 4 times. I felt like an idiot in front of the clerk. You know, the clerks aren't the friendliest sometimes.
Oh, I know.
And, you know, you put that side by side. A few years later, I was at the Port St. Lucie courthouse on exit 121, the court annex, whatever that's called. And the lady called me. She goes, listen, are you going to keep bringing these lawsuits here? Because you guys are filing so many of these damn things, we're going to have to hire another person. So, you know, that was fast forward a few years later. It's just once you do it the first time, you're good, you know, second time better, and third time you're a pro. And so it's nice to know that there's people out there at your level that can say, hey, call me. I'm happy to help you walk you through it.
This is not intended as an advertisement for the FJA. Okay. But I would tell you, I love the organization. Mm-hmm. I have no idea how many hours I've devoted to it. I have no idea how many dollars I've devoted to it. I don't want to know. More than the direct expenditure of dollars is the opportunity cost of going to Tallahassee. I went to Tallahassee 6 times this session.
Wow.
Yeah, that's time away from your family. That's time away from your practice. But somebody's got to do it. And, you know, I love that old saying, lead, follow, or get the hell out of the way. I'm not a guy that can sit back and just follow. Mm-hmm. If somebody's trying to do something bad to me, I want to stop it. I'm not going to rely on other people to stop it. Mm-hmm. That's why I got involved in FJA. I never in my wildest dreams thought when I became a lawyer that I would have to get so involved in politics. Mm-hmm. But Jeb Bush got elected in 1998, and he ran on a tort reform agenda like his brother was doing in Texas. Mm. And I said, you know what? I'm still a relatively young plaintiff's attorney. I'm not going to sit back and let this guy end my career before it really begins. Mm-hmm. You know, so I got involved, and there's a group of us that have been doing this for 25 years, going to Tallahassee. I'm trying to let other people do a lot of the heavy lifting now, but the FJA knows if they ever need me to go meet with the legislator, need me to do whatever, I'm going to do it because I believe in the cause. Mm-hmm. But if you're a young attorney in Florida, if you're not a member of the FJA, I don't know what you're trying to do. I mean, you really need to be a member of the FJA. It has so many benefits.
Yeah.
And like I said, you know, I said to this attorney in Miami this morning, he's probably 35 years old, so he's probably been practicing 10 years. I said, I have no idea how you can practice without the FJA.
Yeah. We almost couldn't practice if the FJA wasn't around.
Well, if the FJA were not around, this would have been over with a long time ago. Jeb Bush told people after his 8 years, we had 8 years of uninterrupted attempts to kill our practice. Mm-hmm. Jeb Bush has told people, because we've heard this from our Republican friends, his biggest regret upon leaving office was he didn't finish off the trial lawyers. Mm. I remember they say the 3 legs of the Democratic Party stool are labor, teachers, and trial lawyers, right?
Oh, okay.
It pretty much destroyed the labor unions, pretty much destroyed the education union. So we're all that's left. Mm-hmm. And luckily, we have a bunch of people that are committed, including a bunch of people that could probably retire tomorrow if they wanted to in terms of their financial picture. But we believe in the cause.
Yeah.
So I would tell young lawyers, you know, excuses are for losers.
I love it. I
get tired of people making excuses. I'm trying to teach this to my son. You know, he's 14, he'll be 15 next month. And whenever something goes wrong, he wants to blame somebody else. I say, son, let's talk about this. Let's break this down. Let's kind of analyze this and see why this happened. Mm-hmm. And usually it's largely because of something he did or didn't do. Mm-hmm. Right? So I will tell you, Abe, and this is the old guy in me talking, I have a theory which I'm pretty sure is correct. The younger generation, how old are you now?
I'm 39.
Okay.
I'm almost at 40.
So what are you? You're Generation X, Y? What the hell is that?
I don't know, man. They say I'm a millennial, but I don't feel that way. I feel like I'm in the in between millennial and whatever the other one is.
I can't keep track of the nomenclature anymore, but
I didn't have streaming videos on my phone. I had a flip phone. No, before I had a flip phone, I had the Nokia that you could play that worm game on. How
did you survive? I feel so badly for you.
I know.
The struggle was real, right?
It was tough. Yeah.
So what my theory is that the younger generation didn't have the indignity of a dial-up modem. You remember dial-up modems?
I remember dial-up modems. Those were brutal. AOL.
So they didn't have the indignity of taking 4 hours to download a movie.
Yeah.
You know, I'll give you a more vivid example. So my former partner, Dick Slauson, was president of the Academy of Florida Trawlers 95 to 96. They didn't have email. They didn't have text messaging. They didn't have remote servers. So when I told him around 2009 that I was going to go ahead and get involved, it was probably 2008, he was worried that I would not be able to produce because I wouldn't be in the office. I said, Dick, we have text messaging. We have remote servers. We have cell phones. We have all this stuff now. Mm-hmm. And the 2 years I was president-elect and president, I was a leading producer of my firm. Now, a lot of that was Greg Yaffa was there because I had, hired Greg back in 2004, knowing that I was probably going to do the FGA leadership thing. Oh, okay. So, I was able to bring Greg along and mentor him and teach him. And so when I was in Tallahassee, we just wouldn't do any mediations. We wouldn't do any trials, but the cases would keep moving. He'd take depots for me. And then I'd come back after session was over and we'd start knocking out some of those cases. So, but my theory is that today's youngsters, maybe the 25-year-olds, everything in their lives is now instant. Mm-hmm. They won't even talk on the phone now. Everything's text messaging.
There was an article about that. It said it's rude to call someone unless it's to talk about emotions or it's urgent. Otherwise, send a text message.
It's crazy to me, but I will tell you, it is efficient. Mm-hmm. And I would tell you, it's unusual for me to have phone conversations with defense counsel now. A lot, because in the bad faith world, I see the same people all the time. Okay. So we all know each other well. So a lot of times I'll email them or text them. I call sometimes you have to, but this younger generation, they don't want to talk on the phone. I've probably had 3 phone conversations with my son in the 3 years he's had his phone. He doesn't want to talk. Yeah. Everything's by text. Yeah. So, they get their movies instantly. Mm-hmm. Everything is instant. Everything's immediate. And so now somebody interviews with you and says, well, what's the partnership track here? You tell them 5 to 10 years, they look at you like you got something growing out of your head. Right. But what I tell people when they interview with our firm is, I'll tell you exactly when you'll be a partner at any firm you want to mention. And they say, when is that? I say, when that firm knows they cannot afford to lose you. Yeah. Okay. That's when you become a shareholder. That's when you get ownership of a firm. Mm-hmm. It doesn't matter how many years it is. I tell young lawyers that interview with us, you might come in here in 2 or 3 years. If you really kick ass, if you're really working hard, if you're generating business, I'm going to make you a partner when I don't want to lose you. Mm-hmm. Until that time, you're not going to be a partner. Right. So...
And they get upset about it, right? Like I had an attorney after the first year say, hey, I want a percentage of all the business that comes in. And I said, I've been in business. This was probably about 8 years. I said, I've been in business 8 years. Yeah. Why would I give you a piece of everything that comes through this door when you've been here for 1 year?
He wasn't there. She wasn't there when you were starting the firm, when you were terrified, when you had to borrow money. Yeah. When you were lying awake at night wondering how you're going to make payroll. Right. Right. Like if somebody said that to me, I want... It brings a couple things to mind. One is people in hell want ice water. Right? So in my experience, what happened was because Slauson had given me the opportunity, I was very patient in terms of when we were going to be partners or equal partners. Sorry. Because I wanted to repay him for the opportunity he gave me. I wanted him to make money off me because I knew that's why I was there, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I'm a great guy, but if I'm not producing money, I'm not a great guy. Right. So it's not that complicated. I think people try to make some of this stuff complicated, but it's not that complicated. Come to work.
Yeah.
And here's another rant I'll go on. So I get so sick of interpersonal conflict in the office.
Mm-hmm.
Like, look, you're all professionals. You're all intelligent. You're here to do a job. That job is to represent your clients and resolve their cases, because that's how we keep the lights on. That's how you get your paycheck. That's how you get your 4 weeks vacation a year. I don't want to be a referee in some stupid, silly fight between two people. It's like just
two adults.
What I basically say is come to work, close your door if you need to, sit down, work on your cases. We'll probably go to lunch together. At the end of the day, go home. Come back tomorrow and do it again. Okay? But don't bring your personal crap to the office.
Right.
And I told a couple of attorneys recently, if you guys can't get along, one or both of you are not going to be here, because I'm not a high school principal. Mm-hmm. So anyway, I don't think success in the business world is that complicated. It's like produce.
Yeah. If you just
do your job.
Do your job, you're good.
Right. So if you come to the firm and you work hard, you never embarrass the firm, you enhance the value of the firm, you enhance the reputation of the firm, you're going to be fine.
Yeah, it's an added value.
So here's the quote I would leave you with, because we've been going about an hour?
Something like that, yeah.
One of the quotes I read that I love, it said, figure out the price of success and then decide if you're willing to pay it.
Let's go. Let's end on that note.
Too many people can figure out the price of success, but they don't want to pay it. Mm-hmm. But they still want to be successful.
Right.
It's like, it doesn't work that way.
It's all the Instagram. They see their friend in front of the Bentley. They don't realize the Bentley's just in a parking lot, and they say, I want that. I know them. Why can't I have that? They don't see the hard work behind it, stuff like that.
Don't get me started on Instagram and the Kardashians and what they've done to our young people.
Yeah.
Because I'll just say this. I mean, even Kanye said in the song Click, my girl's famous all from a home movie, right?
I did not think you were going to quote Kanye today. That's funny.
I'm an old hip hop guy, but
yeah,
just there are no shortcuts.
Yeah.
And when you see crap like that, much of what's on Instagram is fabricated.
Yeah.
They don't even own the car.
Right.
It's just people saying, look at me. I'm like, why do you have to take a picture of yourself every time you do something?
Right.
Why do you have to take a picture of yourself every time you go somewhere?
Right.
Man, I've had some incredibly cool experiences in my lifetime, some things I've gotten to do because of what I've done in the legal profession. And I don't think anybody cares. It's like, I have those experiences. I'll always cherish those memories. But I see these pictures. I'm not on Facebook. I've never been.
Oh, okay.
So now you got me on a rant. Okay. Never been on Facebook. Go have dinner with your family. Go on vacation. I don't care where you are.
Yeah.
I don't care where you're eating.
Yeah.
Nobody does. It's like when you get a wedding invitation. So what's your reaction when you get a wedding invitation? It's like they want you to
I got to go somewhere now.
Yeah. It's like, look, we love you. Get married. I don't need to be there. I don't need to take a day out of my life or 2 days out of my life for your wedding.
Larry David just had an episode about that. He goes, they asked him what he thought about weddings. He goes, I won't go to a wedding if it's more than an hour away. He goes, destination weddings, forget about it. Who are you to make me travel?
Larry David, to me, is one of the all-time comic geniuses. I love Seinfeld. I love Curb. And I think he's so damn funny because he's so insightful, and he says what other people think but don't want to say.
Yeah.
But he's absolutely right. So I don't understand this obsession with, even my son, he loves to fish. So we'll go fishing. Every fish he catches, got to go on Instagram. Like, nobody cares. Is it for the likes? Is it for the follows? Who cares?
Yeah. I think the mentality is sharing it with your friends. So not so much just the internet in general, but just your friends sharing it, letting them know, hey, you missed out, whatever. And it's more of it's a way to connect with people as well. Cause maybe his friends are like, hey, I went fishing, stuff like that. That's I think that's the mentality.
Let me mention one last thing. Okay. Especially with politicians. You go to these fundraisers and you get to take a picture with this person. Mm-hmm. And for some people, that's not enough. It's got to go on Instagram.
Yeah.
It's like, look how cool I am. I've got a picture with President Obama. I have some too, but they're in my office, which it's not like, let me get a selfie with Joe Biden. I'm like, who cares?
Right.
So anyway.
Yeah. No, all good.
That's my rant.
Fred, I appreciate you being here. This was incredible to get to talk to you and get some insight from you. You're an amazing attorney.
Thank
Everybody
you,
knows it, but now we got to spend some time together. So I'm thankful. Appreciate you being on the podcast.
I hope I didn't offend any of you youngsters. Just keep grinding, keep working hard, treat people the right way, be compassionate, be honest. You'll never be a failure if you do those things.
Let's go. That's a trailer, Dennis. That's the freaking trailer. Let's go.
Thank you, guys.
Man, that was awesome. So thank you.